Welcome back to Hacker Hangouts. This is an unusual one. We're live on a Sunday morning. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, because we know our demographic is definitely 30s to 50s moms out there who are watching our channel. Hearts go out to you. But with that, no, there was an awesome opportunity. Jay reached out. Pyr0, you started a conference, and I know that's not just a single person. I know it's a whole crew of people involved.
Oh, yeah.
We've known each other for, oh goodness, a while now at quite a few DEF CONs we've bumped in. But I had this opportunity. Jay reached out and was like, this has to happen. And with the conference coming up so shortly, now is the time. So with that, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your show.
And I love the fact that doesn't matter the day or time. Hopefully this doesn't crash stream. Gator, of course. Thank you for just showing up on a Sunday morning, because why wouldn't you? I love you dearly.
Reliable. I love you very much, Gator.
With that, I want to just jump right into it. SaltCon. Website is in the link below. We're, by the way, for anyone, we had issues with the stream, so we're not doing any transitions or anything, because we're just, and hopefully it won't crash. But if it does, we will be back. But SaltCon, not NaClCON, because I'm an idiot and I read it not as elements at first, but SaltCon. But it was run by the 303 group, and I was like, how is this a thing? Because it's in North Carolina and you're in Colorado. So
yep.
What's happening?
So my wife is the one who had this idea. Make no, qualms about it. She was the one who we went out on our 10th anniversary, and we were sitting there looking at Carolina Beach. We were near the boardwalk. We had this little Airbnb, and we were overlooking all these people that were coming and having fun and wandering and grabbing donuts and hitting the little bars and just all this stuff. And I was like, man, I really like it out here. And she goes, we've been talking for several years about throwing a conference. Why don't we do one here on the beach? And it was like a bolt of lightning had hit us. It just seemed like the perfect thing. For those who've never been to Carolina Beach, it's the local beach of Wilmington, North Carolina. You drive over the bridge, go out onto the island. It's amazing. It's this strip. Everything's walkable. I'd say the median crowd out there is probably in their late 30s to about mid 50s. So it's kind of the right for group and crowd for what we're trying to do with this conference. But it just seemed like the perfect moment and the perfect time. So my wife started visiting with the neighbor that was out there, and it turns out that she is a professional promoter. So it was kind of just serendipitous, and she had the connections with the local Marriott hotel. She had connections with all these local businesses that are out there. Her business partner and her started working with us, and it just kind of has come to fruition with a lot of help from that production company.
I can imagine that it's not a single person endeavor. So
you
had the idea, you started, when did you start planning? Because something behind the scenes with DEF CON we've seen is it's a year round, day ends, it starts back up. So you pulled this whole thing in since September?
Yeah, again, going back to the fact, I work a 50 to 60 hour week every week for my full-time job, right? There's no way we would have been able to do this without the amazing staff that we have, without the production company, without the help of people that are out there in North Carolina right now, just pushing the buttons and making sure that all the permits and everything's in order to be able to do this amazing conference. So I by name have been the person that's out there using my social media and posting on LinkedIn and trying to get everybody to come. But the truth of the matter is that this is 100% run by the industry, or I would even better say the community. And it's for the community, right? Everyone is welcome. It's not just, when we first started telling people it was all about the history of hacking, all the people started being like, oh, so it's going to be a bunch of old white dudes. And it's like, there's going to be a lot of those there. But it's not the focus of the conference, right? There's going to be, everyone is going to be there. Anyone is welcome, whether you are into this scene or this culture or not. If it's something you just want to dip your toes in and come meet a bunch of really cool people, that's kind of the thing that makes this special, right? We're expecting about 120 people. It's not a big conference. This is an intimate conference. And the whole purpose is to get people together to where they can have conversations, share a drink, go explore the boardwalk together. go find the pieces of 8, right? We have these, I might flash really quick here. Oh, conference badges that happen to have NFC chips and other secrets inside of them that play into the CTF that we have. So definitely something that's going to make it fun for everybody that's coming.
Yeah, I also want to hear, gosh, there's so much I want to dive into because I want to hear more about the conference. I want to hear about pulling on speakers. But the one
Sure.
look I immediately saw was pulling on sponsors. I went and looked at the page, and you didn't just like pull on like, oh, anyone who wants to sponsor, we're going to take you. Because from what I've heard, there's 2 ways to start a conference. You either start it in the local bar and tell everyone to show up one day, and then it starts growing, or you you kind of whore yourself out and just pull on like a gazillion sponsors all at once. There's a better way of saying it. But you take on like 80 sponsors and then try and build it and then hope that they will come. In this, feels like you threaded a needle and you kind of found this really cool hybrid approach. How did you choose like what sponsors to pick and who to pull on?
Yeah, it's interesting. Not hiding it at all. Very proud of the fact that our relationship with the production company helped us a lot, right? We came in as the client and we said, hey, we have this really good idea for this conference that we want to throw, but we need a producer, right? We need somebody who can back this, who can run this, who can do the contracts, who knows all the different things that we've got to do. It's like I founded Sky Talks, that runs at DEF CON, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I ran contest events and villages for 23 years for DEF CON. But again, it's part of DEF CON. Like, it's weird to step in the shoes of the people that have been doing this. One thing I'll really lean to, and something that during like opening ceremonies, I really want to take the time to kind of celebrate, is that I was blessed. I had people like Chris Solo and Jake Coons and Heidi and Bruce Potter and, Deb Cavalier and Chris Weishall, right? Talking, these people are amazing people. And since the very beginning of this, they have been the biggest champions for us, right? They've been the people like when I'm sitting there having a heart attack going, at the very start where I was like, oh my God, we have more staff than we do attendees showing up, right at the very beginning. And I'm just dying of like a heart attack, wondering if it's all going to come together and if it's all going to happen. Those were the people that were like, hang in there. It's all going to be fine. Everybody's super excited about this. And without that kind of influence or that kind of like support from the community, I don't know that we would have got to where we got. The sponsors who came in are sponsors that are, if you look at our sponsors, they're all pretty much sponsors that are part of our community, right? And in some cases, one of the sponsors is one of our members of our staff. Another sponsor is a speaker at the conference. And it's their companies, granted, that are sponsoring. Same thing with mine. My personal company, Red Helm, where I work, we're sponsoring that as well. And the idea is that these weren't big $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 sponsorships. These were just enough to try to pay for like an open bar, try to pay for the stage, try to do the very, very basic block and tackle things. And then the people who are buying into the conference are really the ones that are contributing and making this happen, right? We are $495 without the secret 303 code. Hint, if you reach out to me. And that money helps fund everything that we're doing. So we have open bars, your breakfast is paid for, your lunch is paid for. Every single night we have evening events where it's things like Hacker Jeopardy, Dual Core. We're doing fireside chats. We've got a pool party that we're doing. There's just all kinds of crazy stuff that's going on to where, when you look at a lot of different conferences that are out there, it's this kind of 9 to 5 thing. And then people kind of run off and they go do dinner together. They go do other things together.
And $3,000 for the 3 days.
Yeah. And in this situation, the whole thing that we're doing is that we want you to come out and to sit down with all of your peers and watch a single track. And each one of the speakers that's going to get up there is going to have everyone's focused attention. And then in the evenings when we're doing our happy hours, I want people to go around and shake hands and hang out, meet each other, catch up. Maybe it's been 10, 20 years since some of these people have seen each other. So we wanted to give them a beach, place with good drinks, good barbecue, all those kinds of things. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, before we go to gallery, because I know you have a question, I noticed Gator had asked, how can students or volunteers get involved? Are you looking for volunteers, or is it just come on out and jump
Too late
in?
on the volunteers. We announced the volunteers clear back in September and October of last year. We immediately got support from a lot of amazing people within the community that are going to come out and contribute. Many of them are also speaking or doing firesides or other types of things, not just working the conference. But as far as students go, there is a student discount code. If you reach out to me again, PYR0303 at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to send that to you. You can also hit us up at info@NaClCON.com. Uh, either way there. The really the key is if you're going to come out as a student, you just have to be there. It's 21 and up. We have to stress that, and only because we've got alcohol, we're serving alcohol. We have contracts with the hotel and other things. You're more than welcome to be there. If we've got people that are bringing out their families and they have kids and stuff like that. But again, the conference space itself, the one little area of the conference space, that's something where we have to keep that 21 and up. Everywhere else, the beach, the boardwalk, the amusement park, all the crazy stuff out at the pool, all the different events that we're doing that way are, anybody that's out there, because this stuff is public. But to come into the conference space, make sure you're old enough to drink. Don't get me in trouble, please.
That's good information. All right, gallery to you.
And if you're not, just shut the fuck up. To quote Silk, he likes to say, if you just focus on doing cool things with cool people, everything else just kind of tends to work itself out. And it sounds like that's what you're focused on. But
yeah, it's interesting.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you, bud.
No, I was just going to say, obviously, everyone is welcome from what you've said, but the location is interesting to me. Is the intent to empower folks mostly in that local area to build up that community, or is it to be a destination for anyone interested, I suppose? Or is it a bit of both and just to see who wants in, I guess?
A bit of it is that I think that Carolina Beach is a well-kept secret, and I'm ruining that by bringing a bunch of people into there. But that's good. I mean, place is wonderful, and I think that when people come there, they're going to fall in love with it. We certainly did. I immediately had to convince my wife not to buy a beach house out there. But it's a really good time. But there's other things we're doing too, right? Like we have a silent auction that's going to be something where people can bring things, and we do a silent auction, and then we're going to be donating that money to local charities, right? Local causes to try to support and to try to show that our community is coming out there to support their community and to be, part of what they're doing out there. I think that one of the interesting things when you look at the people that are coming is that we have folks from all over the world. And when you look at the speakers, it's just kind of mind-boggling. We had a good idea. We knew people were excited about it. We got the staff, and the staff was absolutely remarkable. Our staff are really the people that have made this possible and made this come together, them and the production company. And then when we put out the CFP, we were like, okay, we have 14 main stage speaker spots. And then we have, 6 to 8 fireside spots, realistically looking at the time of how this stuff goes. God, I hope that we get enough people submitting to be able to do the conference. And again, we only had our CFP open for like a month or something like that. It was like maybe a month and a half. And we had 52 submissions that were amazing.
Oh, wow.
Like big enough deal that like I'm running the conference and my speech didn't get picked. It's one of my favorite things. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things is that like the content is going to be so insanely good. There were people in the industry who are those people that we all really look up to, and some of them submitted speeches that didn't get picked. And it wasn't necessarily because they weren't good speeches. Everything was. It was because it didn't necessarily align with what we were trying to do for the conference from like a fit and feel, right? So we had some people. We had a gentleman who submitted some of the craziest stuff that I've ever seen around like this personal telling of blending the history of all these key components and key moments in time over history of hacking, and the creation of the industry and all this other stuff. And I really, really liked the speech. But when we sat down with the CFP committee, the first question they asked is, but was it him that did it? And it's like, well, no, it's more of an observation speech, but it's cool content, and I definitely think it'd be good. And then it's like, okay, well, look at everybody else that's speaking. It's like you have Lee coming in. This is the founder of the Homebrew Computer Club, right? This is where it all comes from. This was the guy that mentored Wozniak and all these other people. We have Atari and all these other things because of these amazing people who all worked together back in Berkeley during days of free speech movement and all that stuff. Lee's going to come tell his story and talk about, what he thinks needs to happen next, and the fact that hackers are really the people that have the opportunity to steer and create society and create positive change for the forward movement in the existence of the world. And it's so deep. And then you look at our closing keynote, and it's Weld Pond talking about the history of loft heavy industries and what it was like during that time when all this stuff first started spinning up and being created. You've got Richard Thiem. He's speaking remotely for us, but he is coming in and doing this whole conversation around. Well, actually, I'm not going to ruin it. Go out and look at the webpage, guys. NaClCON.com /speakers, I think, and you can get a good idea of the people that are there. But it's mind-boggling that this really seemed to hit a nerve with people in a positive light, right? Like a lot of people, when we started talking about it, they were like, I can't believe that we haven't already been doing this.
What I can't believe the theme, it was funny. I looked at it. I'm like, at first I saw it. I'm like, oh yeah, history hacking. I thought about it, I'm like, how has this not been a legacy or something like that? Like, how has that not been a theme? And it's funny, Gary and I were just talking right before the stream going like, DEF CON's getting old. DEF CON's getting old. And new conferences are coming along, and how much hacking has changed over even the course that we've been alive, and even before then. But how weird it is in the current day and age we are compared to where it started with. I remember IRC, and you're like, as a kid, you're getting on these channels that you have no right to be on, type of thing, and you're trying to pull in the little pieces of information. And
you have
now
every right to be on those channels.
But you then go on Hack the Box. There's try Hack Me. There is a monthly CTF. Heck, I remember when DEF CON started, there was one CTF. And now it's you go down the contest area and it's all CTFs for all the things. There's Lego CTF, ICS CTF. There's so much of them. And it's fascinating to go, not even necessarily where we came from, where we are now, but what's really interesting, okay, where are we going? How does, especially when you start going, where does creativity and curiosity come in, especially when that curiosity can get satiated immediately with something like AI, but that has been almost like a drug for a lot of us, going I can take anything I'm curious from, learn it in a very short time, and now create a prototype in shorter and shorter and shorter period.
Right. Something where, I think about even think about how fun and easy it is for somebody to create a Meshtastic node, right? Pull down, they've got a little ESP32, they go to a website, they do a flasher, flashes their unit, they configure it, and they're live in 10 minutes. I try to remind myself of the days what it was like when we had to breadboard and put components together and literally just assemble something to make lights flash. And how amazing that was to everybody that we made, some LED, maybe it was a point of view LED flasher or something. I remember creating one of those one time and feeling like it was the coolest shit on earth. And nowadays it's the learn to solder kits that kids can get from Hack for Kids or from God, what's their name? The Script Kiddie Village. Those guys are coming and hanging out with us this time too. It's these kits are epic, right? It's just amazing what you can do with it all. So
it's even the kids ones have mercury switches, and you're how in the world? How are you doing these things? All right, Jay, going over to you.
Oh, did we lose Jay? I think he froze.
Is he paused?
We froze for a little bit.
Oh, well, he's gone.
Poor Jay.
That's a shame. I feel
He's
for him.
yeah, his hand dropped.
Um,
No hands raised. But I
so
think that, the big thing that people need to get about why we're doing this is that the knowledge should never be lost about how we got to where we are today. And the thing that blows my mind is that I go to conferences all over the world throughout the year, speaking, attending, hanging out with friends, doing all that kind of stuff, representing the company. And one of the things that continues to be surprising to me is how often when a bunch of us are sitting around smoking a cigar, drinking some bourbon, telling stories, how these amazing, amazing topics and conversations of the past will come up. And it seems like only the person that was there has any idea that this stuff ever happened. And you start learning that some of this stuff was remarkable in the way that it changed or impacted or affected the future, right? Where people were sitting there having a conversation and they started thinking about new means or methods of exploitation, or new ways to go at hardware design, or ways to be more effective or efficient. And this stuff sounds boring to somebody that hasn't been there or seen the outcome of this stuff, but it's something that should never be forgot. There was a moment at DEF CON many, many, many years ago, maybe like DEF CON 14, 15, something like that. And I remember Grandmaster Rat from CDC was running around, and it was awesome to see him. Right, this is somebody who, in the height of CDC days, was kind of the voice and the ringleader of the crew, right? And he was running around and was chatting people up, and it was crazy how many people at DEF CON had no idea who he was, had no idea who CDC was, had no idea who the Loft was, had never heard of Eight Little Green Men, right? Like there are these things that in the past, all of us have learned this stuff because we've been in the same place, same time, heard the stories, whatever, right? And it's this lore that gets passed on. Eight Little Green Men was totally that way for me. I'll never forget when the person like first educated me about this. I'm like, I've never heard of this, and he's like, dude, it's one of like the elitist fucking groups that's ever existed. Like, they were out of England, they're epic. Like, you should check these guys out. Blah blah blah, and it was mind-boggling. Same thing. Rhino 9 back in the day, they had all these amazing point-and-click tools that enabled all these script kiddies. We didn't even call them script kiddies back then. It was just all of us hackers to be able to do all this fun stuff with these exploits that they'd put together. And it was years later that I realized one of the people I'd been hanging out with at DEF CON and was a fellow member in like Security Tribe and 303 with, that he had been one of the people that was in Rhino 9 that had wrote those tools. And it was something where it was like, I go talk to my kids' generation nowadays, they're in their like late 20s. And I'm like, yeah, back in the day, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, no idea what you're talking about, Dad. And it was like, man, we cannot lose this history. We can't lose this knowledge. We can't lose the stories behind how this stuff all came about and how it happened, and moments where people had these epiphanies that have now shaped and changed the entire future, right? So that's a lot to do with why we're doing this.
It is really interesting, especially when you get to we do interviews at DEF CON. You can never ask the question of, is this your first conference or something like that? You can't ask it because like, I've been here since forever. It's always, how many years have you been coming to DEF CON? And then they go, oh,
Right.
this is my first one or something like that. But there was a couple times.
Those are my
how many
favorite. Like,
how
where
many
you
times
find
have you
out it's
come
the
to
first time.
Oh yeah. All right, Jay, off to you.
All right. Thank you all. I think this is also the response from the community that this convention has garnered is sort of a response to the impersonality that I feel like a lot of the industry and sort of technology has come about. Is that I think, one of the fantastic qualities of Pyr0 that I recognized all those many years ago is that I understood that he understood that all of this hacking, the culture, it starts and ends with people. Like, all of our technology had to be coded, thought up, designed, deployed by somebody, a person. And it's all of these stories. And the best times that I've had in DEF CON, all the B-sides, all the different conventions that I feel like we all go to is sure, the talks are great, the demos are great, but it's really connecting with people. And that's something that is being less and less emphasized outside, in the world these days. And, people want that. Like, we want to meet other people to know that, oh, we're not as weird as we thought. We are all still very much weird in our own special ways, but we're less weird than we thought. They're like, oh, you're really into this random thing that only like 20 people are into? Please tell me about it. And then their eyes light up. I had a fantastic conversation a couple of weeks ago at a bar with a guy who was in the cow farming industry. Like, he was deep into it. And he told me, I kept asking questions. And when I asked about cow insurance, this man's eyes lit up like I've never seen anyone's eyes lit up before.
It's the coolest thing ever.
And it's just that mindset, just learning from people.
Everyone freeze but me. Oh, no,
I'm here.
Good. We're back.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
we're back.
Finish your thought. Oh, I think we lost Jay again. I was going to say, I haven't attended a DEF CON talk in years because I find it's way more interesting to just talk to the random person picking a lock in the corner. Yeah. Like, nothing. Right? There's nothing you said. Like, the talks are great, even though I haven't been, like, I watched some of them online later and like, highly technical. It's, the mecca of hacking, if you will, and it always will be. But when I'm on the floor with Silk and we're going from place to place, we always have, like, we don't want to stand around, watching a talk, mostly because they're already filmed and we can watch them later, but also because I find what's happening off in a random corner to be way more interesting and way more compelling, whether it's, like the smallest CTF that starts off this year. I like talking to this way, like, why are you here? What compelled you to make a new contest? Like, and you always find out it's like, oh, we came and we played a different contest and we really liked it, but we thought we could do something better. And it's like, oh, that's really cool in some ways. But so I want to pick on the lore piece a little bit because I find this interesting. So sure. I just got back from the nerdiest conference ever. So Linux File Systems Memory Management and BPF conference. Cool. And it's the yearly.
It's where all the cool people go. We all know this.
That's where all my coolest people go. But it's a yearly conference for Linux maintainers in those subsystems to get together and kind of like I would say there's no drinking during the day because we're all trying to be serious and focus on hard problems that we all think need to collectively be solved in the kernel. But we don't record those sessions on purpose because it lets the kernel maintainers like really hash out hard decisions that people are proposing and go back and forth. Your conference is a little different because there isn't really like a common code base that everyone is working on that needs to be hashed out. But there's a core piece of that that's kind of similar in a sense where you have the common lore of the community that you're trying to, I guess, retain and teach people, and also I suppose in some way shape the future of. Otherwise, why would you be holding a conference to do this? But in the other sense, and Silk and I kind of go back and forth about this about DEF CON too, like there does get to be a point where focusing too much on where we were creates a more insular community where it becomes like whether or not you are actually welcome. You might say you're welcome on your face, but whether you're actually welcome is a sense of like seniority and esoteric knowledge, right? Like you're saying like, oh, people don't even know who CDC or Loft is. But it's interesting because when you talk this way, I think that, but at the same time, I'm like, it's really interesting to watch the community identify it, but then also try to address it with like a conference of its own. So I'm super curious your thoughts on this.
So when we first created this, we had to think really careful about how we wanted to propose it and put it out there. Because when you first see the guest list and you still first see the people that are coming, it's really easy to get overwhelmed and or have some imposter syndrome. I would say that we really tried to tackle that through the by being inclusive about the conversations we're having, the people we're inviting, the way that we've created and set up the website, the community that we've picked, right? For those who have never been to Carolina Beach, this is an incredibly open, welcoming community of every culture, religion, background, race, creed. Like it is a chill place. People get a misconception of what the Carolinas are like until they get out there and spend time, and they're like, this is actually pretty awesome. So especially with the beach community, I would compare the beach community in the same way I do in Colorado. We have these cool little northern mountain communities. You go down to Texas, you've got Austin and San Antonio, where it's just this little bit different, little bit feel of the crowd that's there. And I think that Carolina Beach is that same special kind of like thing that people really find unique and special. From the other thing that I would address is that one of the biggest problems that this industry ever had was the elitism. Back in the day when this stuff first was happening and you were trying to get in with a hacker crew or hacker group or, find your people or whatever, it was incredibly difficult. And people were mean. Hazing was a regular thing. Sometimes people were malicious about it. It was horrible. And I am really proud of the way that this industry, through creations like B-Sides and DEF CON and other types of events, a lot of these regional events, I'm proud of the way that the industry has grown up and realized that type of behavior and that type of mentality was incredibly detrimental, both to the growth of our community, which in turn stunted the capability and where we could be today from a security, privacy, and awareness standpoint, because it wasn't welcoming. Because I still remember days, even clear to today, where people think it's a big deal that girls are in STEM versus this being a normal, regular, accepted thing where it's not about all the other stuff. It's everyone is welcome. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that we're trying to do with this conference as well. When you look at the people that are coming, the people that are talking, the mentality around what's done here is that a lot of these folks are in their 40s and 50s now. They're going to be speaking, some older. And they're kind of coming forward with maybe I was a prick when I was a kid, and maybe this hacker group was a little too elite, and maybe we, didn't let other people in, and maybe we didn't do these other things, and look at how badly it hurt us. Look at how much we missed out on opportunity to bring in new talent or to accomplish new things because we were hung up on our ego or our attitude or our image. And I think it's a really cool thing to acknowledge the fact that the community as a whole has gotten better over the last couple of decades, and that we're now at a place where we're more focused on trying to not forget the past versus necessarily trying to relive it or recreate it. I think we all can acknowledge that what happened back then, good and fine that it happened. It did have the things that it did. I don't think anybody wants to go back to that. Not when you look at how amazing the culture in the community is today, right? My mother and father went to DEF CON the year I retired from staff. And my mother sat down and in 3 minutes time learned how to do surface mount soldering and made like her own badge and did all this stuff. And she was so excited and so proud of it. And, it's still one of those favorite memories that she brings up about that time that she went to DEF CON. And that's one of those things where everyone should have the opportunity to go to learn this stuff. Everyone should be able to pick this stuff up and realize that it's not magic. And I think the way that we do that is by being welcoming, by loving each other, by creating community events like this and hosting types of things that can bring people together and kind of unify. I would love nothing more than to find out that a bunch of people who are new to the industry came to our conference and met people that then become those relationships that all of us have experienced, through going to these events and conferences, where you find that mentor that's there for the rest of your life, right? It's somebody who literally can guide you and steer you, that sage, if you will. That's a lot of what I hope really comes from this is people getting that opportunity to go, holy cow, you're that person. Like I heard about you when you were 12, when I was 12 years old, like you influenced me to get into this. Like those types of conversations are things that are super special, both to the person that, is getting the chance to meet maybe somebody that's their hero. And also at the same time, that person who is receiving and getting that acknowledgement of the work effort and the things that they've done and how it's positively influenced or impacted somebody else so that they've come into this industry, right? That's very powerful as well. So we wanted to create an atmosphere and an environment where people can come together and feel safe in having these conversations, feel safe to, kind of do what we've all learned is best, which is, I don't know shit on this topic. You're the world's best on this. I want to learn from you. That's the thing that I think is really cool about these types of events.
That's the hacker mentality, which is like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Gary?
Yep. Let me ask you a challenging question then, because the reason why I brought up the Linux conference is I really only joined that community about 2.5, 3 years ago. And I've now been to that conference twice. And that's kind of it kind of blew my mind this year because one of the core kernel maintainers announced their retirement after 20 plus years of maintaining the kernel. And there was a discussion about the place where they were then, the place they are now, and how his name is Andrew Morton, how Andrew helped shape the culture in the Linux kernel for, as he said, I believe we need to have compassion for our users who are using our software, and not to let patches languish on the list, and like what it means to be a maintainer. Like, he shaped a lot of the conversation there. And it was surprising to me, having not been a part of that community, how quickly they not only invited me to an invite-only conference, but also invited me to talk at an invite-only conference for ideas that I was proposing. That I learned, from some maintainers, sometimes they accept controversial topics that they don't agree with because they want a chance to actually hash it out in person, where they find that, over beers or over whatever, people are much more amenable to listening to intellectual proposals and trying to get to the bottom of what people are actually trying to do. So, tough question for you. Is everyone that is speaking kind of like a long historical figure, or do you have new blood speaking as well?
No, it's interesting. I would say that all of them have been in this industry for years, some of which have been in here since the 60s and the 70s. We have folks that are definitely out of the 80s, and most of the hacker crew type stuff that you're going to hear about are stories from, the early 90s through the early 2000s, really. But no, there are people that are coming in and speaking that have very, very interesting topics. And it has to deal more with, there's an interesting one. Look at Mia's speech. That she is doing. That really has to deal with like the history of the hacking culture within China, and the way that their culture and the way that they kind of went about things was very different than the way that you saw the U.S. stuff come up. So there's this whole conversation around that, right? Even when we look at some of the firesides are interesting as well, because a lot of those speeches are intentionally not being recorded. They're kind of Sky Talks rules on purpose, because some of the story times and some of the other things that are coming out of that are stories that, aren't necessarily for the wider audience, right? If you want to hear it, you got to be there for it. But when I go back and I think about what we're trying to create and what we're trying to do, yes, there are a lot of people that have been in this industry for a very long time up there on stage speaking. But I do think that each one of them are coming with a different viewpoint or a different approach, right? It's not like it's just a bunch of old folks that are talking about the one crew they all hung in, or the one city where all this stuff went down, right? It's all of these stories about all these different places, right? I watched a really cool one. I was at CypherCon, and Bruce Potter keynoted. And Bruce and Heidi are speaking at our conference as well. They actually have an Ask Me Anything, which is going to be really cool, because it's literally Bruce and Heidi on stage just fielding questions from the audience, which is going to be amazing. But Bruce told this story about him and Heidi's background in what they did to essentially establish the first internet in Alaska. back in the day. And really, you know, it was their life story that they were sitting there sharing. And it was an amazing speech, right? It's something I've known those folks for years, decades now. And I'd never actually heard that whole story about, you know, what they were doing up there and how this stuff all went down, and, you know, the trials and the tribulations of what they went through just to try to get, you know, a connection that all these people could share in these little towns and communities. And it's stuff like that where I think, you know, there are lessons to be learned where a lot of these folks, you know, when we had to do this stuff and it wasn't easy, right? There was this persistence that I think is very important for the success of the world and where we're going to. And as we are watching AI and, you know, quantum computing and all of these things really start to have an effect and a change in our world quicker and faster than anyone ever assumed they would, I think it's important to think about, you know, what were the lessons that we learned at the birth of the internet, the birth of connectivity, the birth of when all of us humans first started connecting. If you guys remember, you talked about IRC earlier. It was ugly. You didn't want to be on there. It was a shit show, right? Human stream of consciousness was this very ugly thing, especially when people didn't have to be responsible for the things that they were saying and things they were doing, because they thought that they were anonymous and nobody would ever know who they were, right? We look back on
things
that
are
now,
better now.
30-something. Well, right.
I mean,
Yeah,
come
if anything,
on.
it's become more overt, right? No, but
Yeah.
the point being is that the industry, going back to what we said, right? We started maturing. We started realizing that things like we said, the, you know, the ego, the attitude, the elitism, those things were so dangerous and so dark and so problematic. I think that we're at another phase of that again in the human consciousness with the adoption of massive AI, right? And I think that as these things start becoming more and more common, more and more persistent, as knowledge becomes something that is a collectively shared thing through these models. Notice how I'm trying to talk all positive about it. I think that it's going to change the way that people interact, the way that our industries function, the way that people work. And I think that if we can get people to really start thinking in the same way that we used to when, you know, damn, my Commodore 64 won't boot. What's wrong with it? Or, you know, hey, I've got to rip apart this old 486 computer because I can't get Windows XP to launch on this hardware, and I've got to make these changes within there. You know, that kind of digging deep mentality is the thing that I think is going to make a positive shift and a change versus people just trying to have a conversation with a bot, right? So
I'll inject one thing
sorry,
before we
going a
jump
little
over
deep there.
yeah, I'll inject one thing before we go over to Jay. I think there's a tension today that maybe existed in some sense then, but not exactly now, which is that, like, back then, if you wanted to hack your Commodore 64 to make it do whatever, there wasn't necessarily a threat of prison time or massive lawsuits in the way that there is now. And the sense of, I'll say, surveillance state in some sense, of your permanent record, we can look to people like GeoHot, for example, that did it wrong in a lot of ways, but was a curious guy that wanted to crack the PS3. In some senses, we would look at that and go, "Oh, that's really cool." In other senses, today we'd be like, "Don't do it that way. Don't do it that way," right? Like, but so there's a tension that exists for kids that, like, we want to make it constructive, but we don't want them to end up in prison in a lot of ways
Right.
that folks in the, you know, we'll say 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s kind of got away with because the industry didn't exist yet. And so I think that's really hard. And so, like, we can learn lessons from the lore, if you will. But I do think we have to respect that the game has changed in a lot of ways. And I think that's reflected in the way DEF CON is presented. But okay, I've said enough. Jay, what have you got for us?
I 100% agree with you. One of the things I always ask is, you know, if I hear all these stories from the OGs like yourself, Pyr0, and others at DEF CON and at other conventions, where I think to myself, if there's a kid the age you were now, back when you did your things back then, could, like, they do the same, like, is that path still viable? And oftentimes I think, like you were mentioning, Gary, like, I don't think it is. Like, they may, you know, they're like, oh, we're dumpster diving in this back area. And I'm like, oh, you might get shot. legitimately you might go to prison. Like the risk tolerance equation is so much more different now than it used to be. But I think
Yeah, there's more surveillance for sure.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to let you continue, and then I'm going to jump in here because I absolutely disagree with what you're saying. I really do.
Yeah?
Like, finish your thought, and then I'll
Fascinating.
jump on.
Well, in sort of accordance with that, though, also, I think, I'm more of a liberal arts, sociology, psychology, philosophy kind of person. And I think what's important is the industry is in a place now where we are deciding what is important and focusing on various elements, whether that is the technology or the people or the business of it. And I think this convention, SaltCon, is we are actively choosing to focus on the people, the history, the oral traditions, and to connect with other people. And I think that mentality, as well as part of the hacker culture, sort of the hacker manifesto back when it was posted, I think that is that's that spark that I see in younger folks, in other people in different industries where not related to technology at all, where they have that curiosity and like the willingness to make a change or to do it themselves or to find out. And I think that is sort of the connecting thread between like everyone who would even not call themselves a hacker, is that they have like this kind of little spark, this little tingle in their brain that goes, I wonder. And then they chase that down.
Right.
And that leads them to other people that go the same way. And I think that's what drew me to this community. And what keeps me in is that I keep meeting people that are very interested in lots of things and have unique personalities to follow.
So there's two pieces off here. And you hit on one, and it actually connects with Remy in chat asked, like, what hacks do you like to watch at DEF CON? And I say, like, what talks and whatnot, and what the generation with GPT are cooked. So like both of these kind of go hand in hand with something I want to talk about, which is like, I think when you look at what conference was it? It was when Sky Talks were going on in the actual Sky Talks, like not the ones which were like on lower floors, like the actual, I think it was,
No,
might have been Riviera.
We did that. The Riviera.
And I remember
Riviera,
finding my way to the back of the Hardware Hacking Village, and I felt like I found like the coolest hack at DEF CON, where I just sat out on the balcony, so I never had to wait in line for the talk. So I'd sit in the balcony and watch every single talk. And it hit me how much I don't want to say despised, because that's a really strong word, but I was on one of the tertiary tracks, not the main track, and it was when exploitation was still, I want to say mainstream, but it hit me. There was like 3 talks in a row where I was like, here is this exploit I did. Here is this exploit I did. Here is this exploit I did. And they were all very interesting. But then the third person came along. Or the fourth person came along. Here's this exploit I did. But it was a really, really good talk. Exploit's the same. Like exploit's the same exploit, same buffer overflow. Like again, nothing new under the sun there. But it was what separated his talk from everyone else's was the story. It was the journey which brought him to this. I noticed this weird delay every time I tried to connect to the PLC. And when I connected to the PLC, that delay was it trying to ping back everything on the network, trying to create a session. And I realized like I could listen on over here. And it was weird because it started shutting down this system, and it wasn't finding the exploit and then moving from the exploit of here's all the ways this screws everything up. But here was the hacker mentality that led me to this discovery. And it was that type of this type of stories that are shared, which help you connect with your own mind going, oh, okay, these are the things I need to look for to jump off. The piece when you said, you go, can these discoveries kind of still exist, or like from back then? This is where like Remy, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I don't think like we're in the dark ages with ChatGPT or whatever GPT, whatever AI. Like we're in one of the most magical lands I think exists, because I have no idea. I've never designed a badge before. I have no idea. I've designed tons of challenges. I've never designed hardware. But I know using something like that, I could go from concept to reality way quicker. Now, it makes it so I'm less reliant on people. Gowrie, you created the Darknet badge multiple years or did the firmware for it.
I was gonna say I helped write the operating
Firmware.
system stuff. I did not
Helped
do the
write operating
hardware.
system. But
And
command
still
code
don't
did it.
know how to do
Bunny
hardware.
has done, Bunny has done them. But would I still reach out to them? Absolutely. Joe Grant, would I reach out to him? Absolutely. However, I now have this ability to go, I can get a lot farther and then go to the sages for assistance for the things I'm getting stuck on versus I have to ping them. And what they really want to do is they would help, but what they really want to say is RTFM. But I can now RTFM a lot quicker because I don't have to go through IRC chats to do it. So I don't know if I agree with the whole LLMs are destroying the industry. But my point, the two things I'll throw out there is one, I think the story driven, that's how we connect as hackers, is the story driven. I want to hear the story. I don't care about the hack. Give me the story. And then
Exactly.
I also think, again, LLMs, I think we're kind of living in a magical era, that you have that information very quickly at your fingertips.
Absolutely. And the ability to generate, that's one of the things that I think is huge too, is the ability to say, hey, get me 80% of the way. And then I can learn from that, right? I'm not having to go pick up Richie's book and read, the Bible on C. I can say, hey, I'm writing a program in C, and this is what I want it to do. And these are the different things that it has to be able to interact with. And it can get me, part of the way. I think that there's a lot of people that will be able to learn quicker and easier, right? Speaking as a dyslexic, attention deficit disorder kid, one of the hardest issues I had when I started trying to learn this stuff is that if I didn't have a specific project to keep me going or something to be working on or trying to learn to code with, I never picked it up. And I had friends clear up into my 20s, even now, that they'll look at something that I've put together and oh God, that's completely the worst way you could possibly do that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not elegant. I barely get things to go. But cool thing is that frightening thing is that I've looked at things that have come out of Bolt AI and then been like, oh shit, I never thought about doing it that way. What an effective, efficient way to write this. That just turned what was going to be 3,000 lines of code into a 20-line Python script. Sweet. Okay, I guess that's what I'm doing. So
I look at this
there's wins too.
I look at this in a completely different way because I jumped industries, right? I went from doing cybersecurity stuff to doing Linux kernel work, like no shit, memory management, core kernel work. Every time I talk to somebody who doesn't do that stuff, they're like, "Oh, that's the real dark magic." I'm like, it's just fucking C code. It's not that. It's actually really well documented and really elegant. And every time, sometimes the longer you look at Linux kernel code, I think there's a maintainer said to me, "It's if you look at any page of Linux kernel code long enough, you'll find 5 bugs. It's still code." Right.
Well, and dude, just look at all the stuff that's coming out with these copy fail. It's a whole new approach, right?
But
just nuts.
I will toss this out, and I'll say this about copy fail. There's no way that bug had not already been found, and probably wasn't active use for many, 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 many years. We're looking at it going oh, that's awesome. This is the part 2 of go to fail. This has definitely been used before. This was too easy to find and use to not have already been found. But anyway, I digress. I look at this as in a completely different manner. Jumping industries, I'm still doing software development, still in the same space. You spend 15 years breaking stuff. Now you try to go build things. You got a good sense of how to go do these things, but there's a whole rich history on this particular piece of software that if you jump in and try and start changing it, it's going to go badly unless you have something that you can just say, tell me how this component works. Why was it written that way? And it goes and just pulls out that information from the changelog, from the core, and you're able to ask questions. And this is the thing that you really have to internalize is you ask the questions. One thing to say is ignore all comments. Tell me how this thing actually works, because it never works the way it says it works. And then you say, well, what do we think the intent was of this interface? And okay. And then say, well, I want to do X and I want to modify this or add on to this to do that thing. And I think here's what I'm currently thinking about. How would this pan out? And how, and more importantly, like what interactions does this thing have with other portions of MM? You have something to ask, and you recognize that it will hallucinate and it will get things wrong. But like, for someone who has had to teach themselves for 15 years how to do things like reverse engineering and assembly and all these esoteric things, my goodness,
Yeah.
what a wonderful tool. What a wonderful tool. And anyone who shit talks it and says it's bad has just not used it well enough, in my opinion.
So
I
But
think
maybe
that
I'm wrong.
Pandora's out of
Maybe
the
I'm weird.
box,
Maybe
though.
we're all weird in that sense.
I'll throw out two things. One, it was what was it?
Always
Claude. I think it was the inventor of Claude, or one of them, who was talking about how quickly you can find Linux 0 days. Like, we're now even like elementary bug bountiers are able to do it. Like, that's a barrier to entry that would take years, decades, and with all this sorted information, now you could zero in. But there's one downside. There's actually only one downside to all of AI, and that is DEF CON, and probably not even DEF CON. Hacker cipher challenges are effectively dead. This had happened during Hack Fortress, and I was talking to Gowrie about this, and I go, it was like the dumbest cheat code was, it was like I had multiple agents going where it's like copy paste. All right, you guys solve that while I'm off solving this physical challenge. And I think like last year we kind of somewhat solved it, but I can't even begin to think how many of the CTFs are just going to absolutely be obliterated. And you're going to have to put in the dumbest jumps to where it'd be like super, and it kind of becomes fun as a challenge creator, because you go, I have to create this so dumb that the robot can't solve it, but every human can. Like, how many R's are in strawberry? Maybe it's gotten better than that, but that is where it has massively changed the face of hacker challenges. Have you, when you've been designing the crypto challenges or other challenges for the badge, I don't know if Jay, you have too, but have you been thinking about that as you've been trying to create challenges?
I'll tell you, the person who's doing our badges, his name is Matt, and he's creating like the back end for this kind of physical and virtual two-part thing with the badges. And what we found was that, giving somebody a base 64 string to decode is quick and easy, and anybody can look at it. And if they've ever done it before, they'll be able to recognize the identifiers and double equal signs and things like that kind of give it away. And AI just would absolutely devour that. So one of the things that we're doing for our pieces of 8 is that we have someone who, I don't know how much I can say. She is a, I'll put it this way. She is a shadow writer for one of the largest on tabletop gaming like type platforms. And she is writing the riddles. And the riddles are what you get. Like, if you go up to somebody's badge, right? It's pirates and the British Navy. And if you go up to somebody's badge and they're a pirate and you're a pirate, and you scan their NFC, then it's going to tell you a riddle, one of 8 riddles that can help guide you to the location in real life where you have to go scan the NFC to collect the piece of 8, right? And the riddle that it tells you is something that our friend has come up with. If you're a pirate and you scan British Navy, right, now you're getting captured, and you've got to solve a cipher challenge or a riddle or something else to get released so that you can stay a pirate. Otherwise, all of your pieces of 8 and all the work you've been doing, now you're on the other faction. And now you're British Navy. Same thing. If 2 British Navy guys come by and they're going, hey, do you have riddle blah, blah, blah? And it's like, oh yeah, I'm riddle 4. And you're a pirate, and they scan it, bam. Now they're captured and coming over to the pirate side in the same way. So it's kind of this fun game where it's going to go back and forth, but the way Matt has put it together is pretty brilliant. I'm excited to actually see it get played out in real life.
Jay?
Yeah, it's definitely that human element with all of the sort of LLM generative technology. Eventually, I work in the threat intel space, and there eventually will come a point where you can just ingest everything and parse everything very quickly, depending on the cost of the compute, but it will be able to do it. So what becomes important at that point, or going back to my original sort of statement, is that I think for me personally, it's the technology doesn't make a person less important. I think it now makes it even more important because you now need that discernment, that judgment of a human being. Gary, like you were saying, the person that was retiring, they are thinking about legacy. Is a LLM going to make that like judgment call about making it more friendly towards the end user? Is our industry going to go to a place where we are welcoming of newer people from different experiences, different regions of the world? What is important? And I think that level of discernment and care and human like touch is something that it can't replicate without an actual person. And so the person designing our badges is putting a lot of effort and time into thinking creatively, collaboratively with the rest of us on how this works to make it fun for people. And that is something I love personally, is that human element. It's why I'm here.
Yeah. It's not just about solving a riddle or cracking a crypto, right? There's all these things that have to be done in person, human to human, that, opens up opportunities for social engineering and all these other things. The LM can't beat that. The LM can't participate in that, right? So that's something that's part of the reason that we're creating it the way we.
No, absolutely.
Humanoid robots soon.
Maybe I'm gonna love at DEF CON this year when they have a little robot dog running around beating all the physical CTFs. It will happen.
Hell yeah, it'll happen.
As long as it's not like a humanoid one, because I don't even want to know what half of Scav Hunt will do with it.
I have a statement and a question. One, you pointed out, like you're saying, the person retiring from the Linux conference and thinking about legacy. I don't think legacy is the point. Right? Like most of the people working on Linux, one, they're doing it because they're getting paid, but two, like it takes a certain person to want to engage with that mailing list. We'll just put it that way. It's a very esoteric development process. And there was a big discussion at that conference talking about how the community is going to leverage LLMs to continue to do work. Not if, how, because like it's here and people are using it. And like last year it was very poo-poo, and this year it's like, okay, the game has changed. And I think the question is very simple, which is like, what do we want it to do? And there was a pretty resounding like cue point through. I don't know. Words are hard. I can't think of the word right now. But like there was a common thread through everyone's statement, which was like, it's really good at like sussing out the how. Oh, great. You implemented a thing, right? Is it correct? Does it do the thing we want? Is it the right shape of stuff? Is there race conditions? Like, great. It's really good at doing all that. What it's really bad at and really never going to be able to do is answer the question, why? Like, why are you doing this? Like, tell me why. And so like I said at that conference, like the code doesn't matter anymore. Like the code's not necessarily cheap to produce, but like code now moves at the speed of ideas, which is really cool. But it doesn't change your cover letter and why you're doing this, which is a fundamentally human thing, right? You like if you hand off the why to the robot, was the point in anything? Like seriously, like why are you building, like if you're all you want is a driver for a router that is like off the shelf and just like re-implements all of the functionality, great. And you just want it to move bits from point A to point B, cool. We've killed a couple companies, but like nobody's gonna cry over that. But like, why do you want to change something in the core Linux kernel that's going to disrupt everybody? You better have a damn good human reason for that. So that's just a statement.
Absolutely.
The second question I have is a little bit more lighthearted here, and maybe we can end on this. So in designing your badge in your game, there's a nice like game design problem living in the hacker space that is always really hard, and I always like to get people's input on. And I'm going to point to Silk's history with DEF CON Darknet, which was Darknet's idea was we want to bring people together. And in the early days, the idea of doing that was we're going to have badges that pair with people. And you get a code, and then you can, as what was that, NBC or whoever interviewed Gator, you plug in the USB and it dumps out all the codes, and that makes you a super hacker. But then you submit those codes to a scoring server, and it gives you points. And so Silk figured out that I don't have to do any other challenges in Darknet. I just have to go to talk to every single person with a badge and report those codes, and I get all the points, and I win, and that's how I got a black badge. And speaking for Silk here, and so there's a game within a game there, and it's like great. That's exactly what you want it to be. But like, have you thought, or what issues with your game that you're building with this badge, and you're trying to get people to do certain things? And there's two parts to this. What issues have you looked at and said, like, I don't know how to solve for that? Because I know this is going to be a problem, but I guess we'll see how it pans out. That's question number one. And then two, like, how do you balance building a conference like this where you are designing a game that you want people to work on, but then like you want people to be present for the things that you're presenting at the conference, the talks, if you will?
Yeah, so you do exactly what we did, which is you go Hacker Pro on this, and you say, I'm putting an NFC chip in there and I'm leaving it unlocked. They can write over it. They can redirect you to wherever they want to go. They could do something positive or malicious with it.
Let's rewind. We froze up there for a second.
And use it for their... Yeah, and the whole reason I'm doing it this way is that, one, the whole concept or idea that somebody isn't going to figure out how to hack this or cheat is foolish, number one. And I fully encourage people to do that. The other thing that I think is silly is when, if you do an NFC-enabled badge, and then, they can play the event for the 3 days they're there, but then they go home and they can't use their badge for anything because you've locked it out. So it's just this permanently fixed thing. That's stupid, right? Like, I want people to be able to turn their conference badge into like their work pass for getting in and out of doors and data centers and shit. I think that'd be great. But no, my concept behind the way to do this is that you leave it completely open-ended. And those that want to have fun with it will have fun with it. And those that want to hack it will hack it. And those that want to break it will break it. And, we may be in a situation where people break the game the first day. Well, if they break it and nobody gets to play with it, fine, whatever. That's the history or the background of how this stuff works. Now, Matt's put in a lot of work to try to make it difficult for people to exploit or to be malicious with the game itself. But it doesn't mean that people won't do something with the badges, right? I could imagine that people are going to probably put a URI redirect on there to Rickroll, right? And then, when you think you're scanning to, get your thing, you're getting sent to sites. Like, I think the way you do it is you leave it completely open and you let people be as fun as they want to be.
So I think this actually lands on a very interesting point, which Gary brought up, which is LLMs have a very hard time of answering why. But hackers have a very, very fun time of asking the question, why not? Why not start why not go from Colorado to Carolina and start SaltCon? Why not, make an NFC badge and have them all run on over? Why not jump on a Sunday afternoon to celebrate Mother's Day, if not to talk and have a shameless excuse to chat?
Call your mom. Call your mom.
We're going around the room, starting with Jay. What's your final thoughts on this that you need to leave us with?
I would say, come on out to SaltCon, meet new people, embrace humanity, have a good time, hang out on the beach with us.
Pyr0?
Yeah, definitely hit up NaClCON.com and get yourself registered. The rooms around there are pretty expensive at this point because you guys missed our room block. But it also doesn't mean that you can't find a really good Airbnb nearby and or crash with somebody that's already got a room. So reach out to the community and kind of touch base with folks and let them know. I think the final thing I would say is that with some of the speakers and the people that are coming out and giving their speeches, this isn't just about story time about days of the past, right? This is lessons learned from some of these people that have been in this 5-6 decades, and they're trying to say, listen, we can do better. We can create things that are cooler. We can make this world a better place, and here's how we're going to work together. So I think it would be very inspirational and valuable to people to come out and be able to experience and be part of that.
Gower?
Just make sure to keep it weird. Silk.
Oh yeah.
With that,
golf cart races all day long.
with
I'm
that,
not saying I'm going to steal a boat, but you know,
I'm not saying I'm not going to steal a boat. Thank you for joining us live on a Sunday. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. And as always, hack on.